northern and eastern borders of our country. He took part in 1965 and 1971 wars and was a senior operations staff officer in the IPKF in Sri Lanka during 1987 to 1990. Prior to his retirement from the army in April 1998, he was the Chief of Staff of the Army Training Command located in Shimla, which is a center for evolution of strategy and doctrines for Indian Army. In addition to being an award-winning author, he writes regularly in Marathi newspapers and participates in TV debates. I would like to request Air Marshal B.N. Gokhale sir to felicitate and welcome Major General Pitre. Thank you, sir. Joining Major General Pitre on stage, we have our next guest, Brigadier Raghunath Jattar, retired. Brigadier Jattar has had a wonderful career full of challenges and heroic episodes. Starting from his service in 1953, he has been a part of many important campaigns like Liberation of Goa in 1960, Battle of Razangla in 1962, India-Pakistan wars in 1965 and 1971. He considers it his honor to be able to take active part in all crucial military operations of army which happened during his service period. After his retirement in 1984, he has been closely working with the industry and several social service organizations. I would request Architect Rajiv Sahasrabuddhe sir to kindly felicitate and welcome Brigadier Jattar to today's session. Thank you, sir. Joining these distinguished guests on stage, we have Air Marshal B.N. Gokhale, PVSM, AVSM, VM, retired. Gokhale sir is the chairman of Maharashtra Education Society and director of Center for Advanced Strategic Studies, Pune, since September 2013. We also have Architect Rajiv Sahasrabuddhe sir, chairman, governing body, MES. Moving ahead, we have Major General S.H. Mahajan sir, Seva Medal, Vishishta Seva Medal, retired on stage. We also have Dr. Bharat Vankate sir, Secretary, MES Pune. I extend a warm welcome to these gentlemen on stage and call upon Air Marshal B.N. Gokhale sir to present the opening remarks.
Thank you, Apurva. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second lecture of the series on 1971 Golden Jubilee, what the Honorable Prime Minister calls it as the Swarnim Vijay Varsh, and we all are celebrating that. As a backdrop to 71, in our first lecture, we had covered the war of 47-48 because, as you know, the whole story started at the partition itself. And then next is today's lecture, which is on 1962. 1962, as you know, was a watershed for India. Inflection point. It was a war which actually we all wanted to forget. And that is why General Pitre has written a very wonderful book in Marathi, Na Sangna Jogi Goshta, and there are a number of editions of that book. It was a book in which, it was a war in which India not only lost the trust with whatever neighbors that we had, but till today we suffer from whatever happened in 1962. And in that particular war, one of the veterans who took part actually is Brigadier Jathar, who is also going to be share his experiences. And you can see the kind of enthusiasm he has sitting there with the walker and as erect as any other veteran. For me personally, 1962 was also a very important year. In 61, I had passed out of MES Bhave School on Prabhat Road. And that was the time when in 1962 war that most of the youth of my time, we all were enthused to join the armed forces. So in 1963, my elder brother joined the army, and 64, I joined NDA to become a fighter pilot in the Indian Air Force. And I must share with you that I'm extremely glad that I have my instructor sitting in front of me, Air Marshal Pingle, who will be speaking to you all. He will be speaking to you all in the next lecture, that is 1965, because in 1965 he also earned a Veer Chakra. I would like you to all give big round of applause once again to Major General Pitre, to Brigadier Jathar, and to Air Marshal Pingle. With these few words, I would request Apurva or to take on this mantle again. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Like Sir said, in our last session, our esteemed guest spoke on Indo-Pak War of 1947-48. And today, we are getting an opportunity to get to know about the India-China War of 1962. I'm sure that, like me, all of you are equally eager for this to start. So, let me request Major General Pitre to speak on the same. No, guests, you can remain on the stage. We have made an alternative display arrangement here. All right, whatever is comfortable to you. Sure.
Hey, Marshal Pingle, is it on? Is it on? Hey, Marshal Pingle, hey, Marshal Gokhale, Brigadier Jatar, ladies and gentlemen. At the very outset, I must compliment the MES and the Center for Advanced Strategic Studies for really taking this wonderful initiative to cover the entire gamut of the operations that in the Indian Army, Navy and Air Force have so far undertaken in last more than 7 decades. Swarnim Year or Swarnim Marsha commemorates or celebrates our victory in 1971. It was a decisive victory by all means, but there was also an ignominious defeat that we went through in 1962. It is my mandate today to cover that. Having said that, I must say that but for few generals which could be counted on your fingertips and few politicians, all men fought very well. They fought for the country. They fought as soldiers should. And never was Tennyson's these lines were more appropriate, who said, not that the soldiers knew someone had blundered. Theirs not to make reply, theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do or die. And someone or some few did really blunder, and that blunder is the main sort of thrust of my story today. I will cover this. I'll first give you an overview of the border dispute, then cover the events leading to war, which will be a little longish. Then I'll cover the war in Tawang. Am I touching something? Okay. War in Tawang sector, war in Malong sector, and war in Ladakh sector. But what I do is, I'll go more detail in war in Tawang sector, and Brigadier Jatar, who's here, will cover a little more in detail the Ladakh sector. I must mention that I'm very fortunate to have the presence of an icon and my senior, Brigadier Jatar, whose name will be mentioned in dispatches, who really has gone through this war. And when I explain or sort of chart out the sentiments, here is a person who has gone through that every sentiment. I got commissioned just on the day the war finished. So I'm only, what I say is just a hearsay or just read say. But here is a person who tell you really what happened. Just couple of coordination points, couple of sort of ground rules. Firstly, this is a presentation by a soldier, not by a diplomat, neither by an academician. So I'll be going to the wire, because unless I go to the organizations, unless I go to the army jargon, you would not know what the war was. So just to put few of you who are uninitiated, just certain basics. The lowest fighting unit is the infantry platoon. 3 platoons make a company. 4 companies make a battalion. Now, battalion is a major first integrated fighting unit. 3 or 4 battalions make a brigade. Now, at the brigade level, the other supporting arms start visiting or start supporting. Then 3 divisions make a corps. Corps is the lowest or operational or highest operational niche that they have a direct control on what are the operations. Above that is a command or a theatre where the army commanders like Southern Command or Eastern like Calcutta, they are sitting, but well, they have every dictate in the proceedings, and then is the army headquarters. So I just wanted to mention this. And when I mention 2 Sekhilai, 5 Gadwal, 4 Rajrif, these are the names of the units. So I thought I'll put that so that you don't confuse what am I saying. Second very important thing is in my script you would find a reference to the Henderson-Brooks report. As you all know, the Henderson-Brooks report is in lock and key. It has not been released. But in between, Neville Maxwell was written a book, very good book, and it's a standard book on Indo-China war. He uploaded that report. I was very fortunate to see that report. Actually, that was the ration data of my book. So I'll be mentioning Henderson-Brooks report. It is on what he uploaded was just what happened. He did not put up any opinions, and political aspects were not. In any case, they would not be shown to people. So that's what you'll be seeing in between Henderson Brooks report's reference. Not going? So I'll now first come to the border dispute. I must say that now that it is very current, and actually when we come to Ladakh, you'll find it has a lot of contemporary sort of significance, as you will now know the names of all Daulat Beg Goldi or Galwan or Demchok. These are current terminologies. But border dispute is not understood by many. I'll just quickly go through the border dispute. You know, when the India-China border is about 4,057 kilometers, it is from Mustaq in Afghanistan border to Talu Pass on Burma-India border. There are three sectors: northern, central, and eastern. Now, this is the northern sector. I will come back to them later again, but it starts from Karakoram Pass and goes right up to Demchok. It has that Aksai Chin portion. We'll come on to the Ladakh a little bit more after I go. Now, the center one is the central sector. In the northern sector, we have about 35,000 square kilometers which have been occupied by China. The dispute in this area, this is the route to Manas Sarovar, and it is on Uttarakhand-China border, and we have a dispute of 2,000 square kilometers, which is very minimal. It's not much. And then we come to the eastern border. Now, this is the eastern border which starts from Chuntham, that is next to Bhutan, and goes all over up to the trial junction of India, Burma, and China. This in 1962 was what Northeast Frontier Agency, NEFA. Today it is Arunachal Pradesh. Now, it had 5 main passes: Chuntham, Bumla, then Longju, Karpola, and Rima. Now, these references will keep coming. There are 4 major rivers: Kameng, Subansiri, Siang, and Lohit. Now, these 4 rivers divide the entire portion into 5 divisions, and they're called by the rivers. This is, of course, the Brahmaputra river, and this entire portion is mountainous, and as you come, these are called foothills. So, as you come to Tezpur, these are all foothills area. Now, how borders come is, empires always expand till they meet either a big natural barrier or an adversary. And that's precisely what happened to the British Empire when they came in. They found 2 major, as they expanded north, they found 2 major adversaries, Russia and China. But the same fact was, they were more bothered about Russia and much less by China. China was a very small player. Sorry. Yes. I would have given it. So, China was a very small player. So, the sort of game between the British Empire and Russia was what called the Great Game. Now, as far as the British Empire was concerned, there were 2 major schools of thought. One were hardliners and one moderates. The hardliners felt that we must have, for Russia, if it's going to come, as much as possible no man's land beyond our borders. So if Russia comes, we could absorb their thrust and still keep our borders safe. So they were called hardliners. Whereas the moderates felt that we should have borders as close to our British Empire or British India as possible, so that we do not have to honestly defend the area which we don't require. Now, mind you, this was between this concept of British India and that also with Russia. China was in no picture at all. But as the thing changed, as we'll go and see, now the Ladakh border, the Ladakh was part of Tibet till 10th century. Thereafter it became independent. In 1834, it came under the Sikh Empire. And in 1846, after the Third Anglo-Sikh War, it became a part of J&K or Gulab Singh. And since it became part of J&K, it came to India once we got independence. Now, very briefly, the topography. Now, I had already shown you. Now, this is the expanse of the Aksai Chin. Now, this, what you see here, is a border between India and, I'll just let them settle. Boys, you can come in front also, there's some, that place, that side a place. You can come here. Some of you can come here. Quickly, please get in. There's some place there. Come on, please come in. That's a very big captive audience, I must say, if it would have come earlier. Whether are you going to sit through? Huh? Huh? I know, understand. So, please come in front if you want. Nobody's come. Please quickly. Please settle down. Don't count it on me. They're from India. But other boys are going out. I don't know why. Please don't go. You come and sit here, all of you. There's a lot of space here. You know, they're still moving about. I mean, this. Please settle down quickly, kindly. I'm on the Ladakh. Now, this is the area of Ladakh. Now, as I mentioned, this outer line, as you see, is called this is the Indian concept or Indian consideration of border between India and China. And this is China's idea of the border. We'll say why. Now, this area is Aksai Chin. Aksai Chin is a hard desert, is a dry desert. Now, actually, what happened was the chief surveyor of Maharaja Gulab Singh was to go to Shahidullah, and really he would have gone via the Nubra, but he missed his route and he came inside here. This was in 1865. And when he found this huge area, he came back to Maharaja, and Maharaja said, let's put it in my country. That's how Aksai Chin became the part of Jammu and Kashmir. That's why British Empire, and that's why Indian Union. You must understand that. Now, these are the things which you are hearing every day. DBO, as it comes, This is Galwan and Kangri Sumdumli. This is the Depsang plain. This is the Lingzhan plain, and Lanakla, Kongkala will, and then you come here. This is Chushul, and this is then Pangyang Lake and the Spangur Gap. So this is the Ladakh. We are more concerned with it today. Now, the genesis of Ladakh-Tibet border very quickly. The hardliners felt, as I mentioned to you, the surveyor, Mr. W. Johnson, his unintended visit in 1865, he marked this border which I just showed you, and it was along the Kunlun range. After all, borders are marked along the range. So he took the outer range and it became the line which was called Johnson-Ardagh line. Johnson, Ardagh was the DMI, Director of Military Intelligence of the British Army. Then the moderate version, as I mentioned earlier, they didn't want to go out too much. So they wanted a border along the Karakoram. We'll just see how. They wanted a border along the Karakoram. So it was suggested by one McCartney and a Liu Yuan who was associated. And it is called McCartney-MacDonald line. And it was submitted by Viceroy Elgin to China in 1899. Now China, like their policy is, were very ambiguous. They didn't mention anything which border they wish to adopt. Now, as you can see, this is the Johnson-Ardagh line outside. It is along the Kunlun range, and this is the Karakoram Pass, and this along the Karakoram range and Laksam range is the MacDonald line. Now, these were the two lines which were left when we went to 47. Now Indian government stand kept on varying till about 1954. We ourselves were not sure, and thereafter, I should say with a little less thought, we went for the outer line, Johnson-Ardagh line. At every stage, as you will see, mistakes were made, and these mistakes, if were not made, all this problem would have arisen. We went for the outer line because it was along the Kunlun range. So Chinese broadly preferred the McCartney-MacDonald line, which was inside, and they later put forward their claim in 1960, which was much different than the McCartney line. Let's see how it was. This, as I mentioned, sorry. This is the Kunlun range. This is the Johnson-Ardagh line, and this was actually the MacDonald line. Chinese in 1959 came up to this level, this range. So this was 1959. This was the line which Chow Enlai came in 1960 and requested Nehru to accept. He says, you accept this line, we will settle the issue, you give this to us, and we will not have the claim, which was only a counter claim on Arunachal Pradesh. Unfortunately, by then, they had already, what have I done? Unfortunately, by then, they had already made this Karakoram highway, which is called 219, you must have all heard it. Now, they had already made this Karakoram highway, and once the Karakoram highway was made, the thing was irreversible, because they had to definitely give death to the Karakoram highway, and then not only did they were happy with this, but they came right up to here and later here. That we'll see. This was about, so there were three lines as I mentioned to you, the McCartney, the Ardagh line, the MacDonald line, and Chinese claim lines 59 and 60. Now let's come to the genesis of East. Now Assam Himalayas were inhabited by very fierce tribes, and Assam Himalayas really belong to Burma. When the Ahom tribe, they invaded this Assam Himalaya and they were in control and it belonged to them. Now, King Chandrakanta wanted help when there was a problem with him in Burma. So Britishers helped him by sending the armies through Bengal, and there was a treaty, very important treaty in 1826 called Ardobo Treaty, and they donated the entire entire Assam Himalayas to the British, and British marked the line along Brahmaputra and they said this is inner line, nobody will go ahead, and the matter ended there. But later they realized, Britishers, as you know, business for their business, and they realized that Assam Himalayas are very rich in teak and tea. So, except for the Tawang, which was under Dzongpen, a very, very fierce battling tribe, they wanted the entire thing again to be under their control. There are two trade routes which I mentioned to you. First trade route is along the towards the west, along Tawang, right up to Tezpur, and the second two to the east, Rima, and coming down to Tezu. Now these are only two trade routes. Britishers sent a young husband expedition in 1904, went up to right up to Lhasa. As well, they claimed Lhasa at that time, and in 1910, the Tibetans, or should I say Chinese, Tibet was an autonomous region, they sent General Feng sent his troops to Rima. And that's the time Britishers felt that they must align the border in the east. So the Manchu Empire fell in 1911 and the need to border became all the more intense. That's when in 1913, Sir Henry McMahon, who was the British Foreign Secretary, under him a committee was formed called McMahon Committee. There was a conference in Shimla. They asked China to give a representative. They were not very willing, but they finally hummed and hawed and they gave Chen Fan, as he never attended much of the meetings, and the two lines were marked. One line was between Tibet and China, and one line was between Tibet and India. Now Chinese had really the reservations about the top line, the outer line between China and Tibet. They expressed no discontent towards the line between Tibet and China, which is the McMahon line. But Chinese were Chinese. What Britishers did, that was underhand dealing, in February, March 14, they had a secret meeting in Delhi and they made a boundary marked of maps. It was marked on the map, 8 is to 1 mile. That means the McMahon line has been marked on the map. That's the only line, whereas in Ladakh there is no such line. This was exchanged between 24th and on 25th March 1914. This was not accepted by Chinese, as they say, though their representative signed it. Now it must be understood for our reference in this discussion that the boundary is not along the watershed. It is along it's an ethnic boundary. It is a boundary between the Tibetans and the fighting tribes of Assam Himalaya. That's what was really the boundary. Now McMahon was criticized for trickery by experts because it was definitely a trickery there. So these are the China keeps on still mentioning this point. And in 1914 the World War started and this went into a closet. It was not seen. Survey of India maps in 1937, they show this as a hashed line, as an undemarcated line. It was only in 1954 that it was marked. Thus in 1947, when India became independent, in our lab we had unresolved borders, both McMahon line, though it was marked on the map. So it is really a delineated and demarcated border. Whereas in Ladakh, Nothing was certain. Now, we had to, and China, as you know, in 1950 when Mao Zedong came, he made an announcement that we will disregard or dishonor all the imperial treaties. And well, McMahon Line or all these agreements fell within it. Now, India adopted Johnson-Ardagh Line as the bond in Ladakh. It would have been better, we would have thought little more at that time. But what our government that time said is, it is defined by long usage and customs. No serious thought to possible Chinese stance was given. You can't say that it is defined by our customs unless the other person agrees. So this was not done. On 29th April 1954, as you know, the Panchashil was presented in Bandung conference and India accepted Tibet as part of China. We thought China will respond. So Nehru at that time pointed out to Chou Enlai that some errors in the map. As usual, Chou Enlai said, oh, his reply was very ambiguous. But just in 2 years when he came in 1956 for visit to Delhi, he brought out the cat out of the bag. He said, there is a need to discuss afresh. Now, that is the time when Karakoram highway from Gartok to Shahidullah, 1200 kilometers was built between 1955 and 58. Mind you, India did not have any idea till 57 when the border patrols crashed. Now, this has very grave strategic implications, and those strategic implications are growing because the same 219 is not now going into 230, and that is the new CPEC, which is now coming up right to Gwadar. So, the start was made in 1955, and we could do nothing at that time except for protesting. Dalai Lama entered 31st March 59, was granted asylum, that became a new bed of differences, and Nehru and Chou Enlai corresponded vehemently between 1958 and 1959. Nothing was decided. There were 3 incidents: Khenzebane in Nifa, Longzhou in Nifa, and Konka in Ladakh. And these were quite severe incidents, and we could come to know that there is going to be a problem. Nehru government realized the gravity of the defense of borders. Till then, till 1960, I don't want to use a stronger word, but it's strange that a border of 4,000 kilometers with our neighbor was under the MEA, and it was being looked after by the Assam Rifles. Defense had nothing to do with it. On that day, Nehru realized that we must give it, and at that time, it was given to the army. And the final meeting on 19th April 1960, the talks failed. And a committee was appointed, which was of no use. That time on Chou Enlai said that you give me 1959 claim line of mine, I will have the Aksai Chin, and we will take back the claim on Nifa. Now that was a barter, quid pro quo. Strangely, after 1962 war and on today, the border is well beyond 1959, and we are fighting, or should I say, cutting China to mark that, because that is the LOC. See, what is it's the irony of situation that he was giving it on a platter, a border which was much to the east. Now they have come inside and they are not prepared to mark that LAC. If that LAC is marked today, the entire thing what is happening, our demand is you mark the LAC and we'll come back. But we'll see that later. Now Chinese, as I said, extended their claim line in 1960. Now you see these 3 borders very clearly. This Now, this is the border along Kunlun range, and this is the Johnson-Erdog line, which India feels that is an international border. The China has now forgotten the McCartney-MacDonald border. Then this was 1959 claim line, which they have again this thing. Now they have come, they want this 1960 claim line. And incidentally, while 62 war, as I will tell you later, while China went back from NIFA, they stayed put on this border. That is what happened. Now we will see the events leading to war very quickly. Now NIFA was placed under headquarters Eastern Command, that was at Lucknow, and Lieutenant General SPP Thorat was the army commander. A new corps was raised at Shillong, 33 Corps. It was made responsible for Sikkim, Bhutan, NIFA, Assam, Nagaland and East Pak border. There are 5 corps now in that area. 4 infantry division for the first time, any army for the first time was moved on India-China border, and 7 infantry brigade was moved, 1 battalion at Bomdila and 2 battalions at Tawang, and 5 infantry brigade was moved on the other side, of which I showed you, towards other sectors. We are only concerned with Wolong, that's why I put it in red. Now Ladakh was placed under the Western Command. The Western Command GOC in C was General Daulat Singh, and a new brigade was raised, 114 Infantry Brigade, in May 1960, and it was allotted to militias, no battalions, and they were asked to look after this portion of Ladakh which we just saw. Now road from Bomdila to Tawang was ready by January 62. Till January 62, there was no road beyond Bomdila. And then the road from Leh to Chushul was built in October 61. See, because the border road organization, again we woke up that borders have to be defended. Since border road organization was made out of Corps of Engineers in 1959-60, and then they started working. See the late realization. We are already 13 years into an independent India. Now, when we moved these 2 piddly little companies, China moved 2 infantry divisions in that area. Now, General Thorat, he was the army commander. He put across an excellent concept which was by a general. It was strategic perception. And his idea was, he said that look, this entire region of NIFA, because he was mainly commanding Eastern Command, he said, I can't, it is silly to go and defend every inch of the border. This inch lenge is a nonsense. It has nothing to do with the army concept or the strategic concept. So what he said was, he made this line. You see, it joined Tawang, Sela, Zero, Daporijo, along, Roing, Lohitpur, Huliang. You see, it is much inside the border. So what he said is, let's put in front all the Assam rifle companies, platoons, there were 90 of them. Let the Chinese come. Let us give them way. And once they come, we'll understand which thrust they are taking. Then we move our forces and then sort of counter them. This is how a war is fought. In 1812, when Napoleon came, or in 1941, when Hitler came to Russia, both times Russia got in, and both times they threw them out. That's what Thorat was saying. Let them come in, let them get tired, and once they come in, then we'll get together and throw them out. Unfortunately, Menon would have nothing of it. Mr. V.K. Krishna Menon was the defense minister. He says, I accept no loss of territory. And suddenly a triumvirate of Menon, B.K. Malik, B.N. Malik and B.M. Kaul Kebab. Menon was the defense minister. B.N. Malik was the IB chief. And a very ambitious person, he was a brilliant man. Unfortunately, he showed the brilliance at the wrong time. Kaul was much junior to the army hierarchy, but he came up because he was very favorite of the Prime Minister. Now these three people came and they said, let's have the entire army, whatever it is, let's deploy them in penny packets all over. What they said was, occupation is 90% of the ownership. China won't attack, was their bygood. They said, let's put them, the patrols will clash, some casualties there, but they will not come in. Now they're flouting the basic principle which General Thorat and General Thimaaya was the chief, and General Thorat was the basic, this was flouted. You cannot defend borders like this. And anyway, IB chiefs can't tell us how to defend the Indian borders. We had enough generals to decide that. But that's what happened. And there was a meeting in Prime Minister's office on 2nd November 1961. People were the Prime Minister, Menon. By then, General Thapar had taken over as chief. Then his director, military operation, Brigadier Pallet, famous writer, and then these three people. Now, they told the Prime Minister this theory, and Prime Minister said, good idea, put them. So General Thapar said, how would I give the tactical support to these people? When he said so, Prime Minister said, what is tactical support? So the Director of Operations explained him what is tactical support. Prime Minister said, don't worry, China won't attack. And a forward policy was accepted. And it became thereafter a gospel. Actually, a letter sent by the Secretary General, Mr. Nehru, there was a third clause, keep sufficient forces behind. Now, where are the forces to keep behind? If you had very adequate forces, if you put them all on border, where will it be? So, the General Staff very intelligently didn't transmit that clause at all. On 2nd of November 1961, I firmly believe, and I've written, that the defeat of 1962 war was scripted in Prime Minister's office. That was the day. Sorry. Now the implementation started. The Western Command, they had just 2 battalions. They deployed 36 posts. They became very weak. That's what Henderson Brooks report says. A case in point was Galwan. You're hearing that. In Galwan, when it was important to have that, Kaul said, send 1 platoon. So platoon of 180R was sent there on 5th of July, 1962. They were completely encircled because there was another post called Sumduling, which we'll see later, or I would have shown you earlier, that was very sensitive. When it was sort of encircled, they sent another company of 5 Jats under Major Hasabnis, who is now Colonel Hasabnis, stays in my PW, stays in my colony. Chinese kept quiet. After that, there was also such an incident in Chipchat Valley. Nothing happened. So Blitz wrote an article that Nehru is a Napoleon. He has stopped with these small people, he has stopped all the people coming. Chinese were watching. They were doing nothing. Now, this was the Galwan post. Now, Western Command asked for additional forces. China had 4 regiments. So we had actually a force ratio of 20-3, which is very difficult to defend that. So when he asked, a reply came on 5th September, the Chinese won't attack. Don't worry, you just deploy these forces. From July to September, Chinese erected 57 posts, we erected 77 posts. Chinese did it with 1 division. We did it with half a battalion. With 77 posts, 43 posts were east of the claim line, 36 posts were with section or less. That means less than 11 people in hibernation, sitting in an isolated place. What will they do? 3 people can go and hit them. So 114 Brigade, after they shouted, they were given another battalion again it was split into penny packets. So as you can see, this, sorry, this has become very complicated for me. That's why I was not taking this on. Is something wrong with you? Thank you very much. If it is with you, I am happy. So you can see this, that this now, these are the posts which were ahead of this thing. This which I mentioned to you, all these posts were penny packets. What happened to them we'll soon see. Now, this is not the way you take a defense. On a border, you don't say, you see what is happening today. They are not doing this nonsense. But anyway, we'll go ahead. So implementation by Western Command. So 114 Brigade had only one MMG platoon. Chinese had heavy mortars and RCLs. The comment by Henderson-Brooks committee was, they were neither equipped nor had logistic support. Men were expected to fight on their own. These are not stragglers. I mean, they can't fight on their own with the enemy, but that's what they were left. Now, the provocation, this one was in Nefa, but was in Ladakh, but the spark really took place in Nefa, and the story gets very intensive, very interesting. Now, in Eastern Command, Lieutenant General Umrao Singh, these are some people who put their foot down. Lieutenant General Daulat Singh, Army Commander, Western Army. Lieutenant General Umrao Singh, these are the people who told everybody that you are doing a mistake. But they were sidelined and they were thrown. Actually, they were exactly sidelined and new things were created. We'll see how. He resisted. Now, let's see the Tawang sector. Now, just see this, very important. Now, this is the Tawang sector. You know, starts from Tezpur. This was the road, goes to Rupa. Those of you who have been here, of course, goes to Changa, Rupa, goes to Dirang, Sangay, passes Sela, Jang, and Tawang. This is the road. It was only up to Bomdila, it was a proper road. Beyond that, you used to take 8 days of walk from Bomdila to Tawang. The road was made. Even after it was made, it required 5 days because it could only take, it was a class 5 road. That means it could only take the jeeps and the 1 ton. 1 ton is a small vehicle. So any battalion to be inducted, it took 5 days. These are very important figures. Then beyond this, this is a road. This is a place called Zemitang, which will come where the actual battle was fought. And this is this area. You see, this is, as I just told you, I'm getting, this is, man, you can't make an 80-year-old man to operate this. So this is Misamari and this is Tanga. We have this Zimitang I was talking of. So let's see the further portion. Now, you see from here, this is Zimitang. You go up, there are 2 major ridges. This is the ridge Karpola, Dhola, Hathungla. It's about 16,000 to 13,000 feet. And then second ridge is the very famous Thagla ridge. In between is this piddly little river of 30 to 50 feet called Namkachu. No general ever will think to put his men inside. Actually, when Kaul did it, one of the JCOs told him, sir, I have fought the Second World War. ये हमने कभी नहीं देखा कि हम नीचे बैठे हैं और दुश्मन ऊपर बैठा है. Kaul tell him, arrest him. Now that was the point. So we were, see the basic mistake we are doing. So what we would have done really is either we would have gone to on this. Of course, we couldn't go this, and we will see the fun later. So anyway, this is the Namkachu river on which we took this river is Namgachu and this Namkachu, we took the positions there. We'll see how. Now, the implementation by Eastern Command. By now, General Thorat had gone long away. When he was at 2nd November when the policy came. Before that, both General Thimaya and General Thorat had retired. Now the new army commander was General Sen. Now he told them erect 24 posts. GOC 33 Corps refused. He did not erect, including Dhola. Now Dhola had become a center point now. 33 Corps brought to the notice of Eastern Command. They are very important things. They told them that, I mean, we are talking from the Chinese side really. They told them that McMahon line on the map and actual watershed are separated by 5 to 6 kilometers. The tri-junction which you are talking is ambiguous. MML is not correctly marked and transposed. What they were saying is actually the McMahon line is not on the Thagla Ridge, but it is on the Hathungla Ridge, almost about 10 kilometers. Had we realized it, there would have been no war. Be that as it may, the decision from the government was MML is along Thagla. Neither the marks, neither maps are marked. Thagla doesn't show the McMahon line on Thagla. But it was told by Mr. Menon that MML is along Thagla, and we started going on it. Now the Chinese view was McMahon line is south of Dhola along Hathungla, which to a very small gathering guess it was right. But be that as it may. Now, implementation. Now orders to elect a Dhola post, which I showed you. Why Dhola? Suddenly out of it, they just wanted something near Thagla. They were given June. Dalvi said that Dhola is unsuitable. No general will call it as a tactical post. It had nothing to do, it had no depth, it had no height. But they said, have a post at Dhola. So they told him, we suggest erect a post at Hathungla or Thangdar. It was not accepted. It was overruled. Captain Mahavir Singh, one Assam Rifles platoon, who was sent to establish the post, which have died, he got an MFC later. So Chinese quietly watched for 3 months. They proposed a meeting to discuss alignment in Thagla. Actually, as the story goes, their foreign office and our foreign office had already tied up, and our chap was already walking towards this thing to have a meeting, but Prime Minister said no meeting. It was rejected. So, no talk with Chinese at that time. Dhola, they call it Sedong, was attacked on 8th of September. And in one big thrust, in 2 hours, they were wiped out. Now, suddenly fire broke out in Delhi. On 9th September, 12th September and 22 September, they were meeting what to do. Menon was told that Dhola may be north of McMahon line. Don't touch it. Henderson Brook Committee concurs with it on paper. But, and 33 Corps was vehemently telling them, don't again go to Dhola, but that was not to be done. Menon said, a very famous thing, evict Chinese from Dhola. What did we have? We had 2 battalions. Chinese had 3 divisions on Thagla Ridge. This height of self-confidence. Dhola and Galwan then became India's symbols of prestige. We said, we must take Galwan, must take Dhola. Dhola, this is what happened. Galwan was on the first day when the war started on 20th October, it was wiped out. There were 24 dead and there were 17 prisoners of war, including Major Hasamnis, who were taken to China. So that's what happened with these 2. Now, warning Tawang sector, very quickly, this story is again interesting. On 9th and 10th September, the there were two battalions in Chardwar and this thing. What I'm trying to say, 7 Brigade had only one battalion that time. 19GR was in Misamari. They were asked to move. They had already finished 3 years tenure in Nifa. 4 Grenadiers was new battalion. They had already finished 3 years. 19GR and 4 Grenadiers were both sent back to 7 Brigade. Now, 9 Punjab was ordered to move to Dhula on 9th of, please note the dates, 9th of September. They reached there on 15th of September. They reached from Tawang to there. Then Dalvi was ordered. Dalvi, Brigadier Dalvi, as you must have heard, one who was written Himalayan Belder, was the unfortunate commander of the 7th Infantry Brigade. He was asked to rush to Dhola. He reached there on 30. He reached there on 18th September. That's why I told you how much time does it take to reach. On 19th September, 18th September, 9 Punjab was ordered. This is in writing. Capture Thagla, Humatsola, Karpola by 19th September. It's an absurd order. There was one battalion. There are 2 divisions, and it was given in writing to this thing. At least at this time, and now 2 more battalions allotted, but the 33 Corps refused. They said, we will not follow this. The logistics state was very poor. Umrao, everybody had disagreed with the move, and there was hardly any support. There was no logistic support. There was no RT support. There was just nothing anywhere. Activities, 19-20 September, 33 Corps said that unless you put 530 tons down, we will not attack. 23rd September, there was a meeting, and a joint secretary gave it to the Chief of Army Staff, a letter that please go and attack. So, the contention of the Army Commander-in-Chief was overruled. They told that if you start operations in Nefa, it will trigger operations in. Is it for me? For me? So I know what a master is pointing out. A joint secretary gave a letter to the chief to say that please go and attack Thagla. Then on 2nd October, now what did they? So since the GOC 33 had refused, a very funny thing was, Sen went and suggested to Menon, you please remove Umrao Singh, because he is coming in between. He is GOC 30. He is not accepting our orders. So what a new funny wire media they did. They decided to raise a new corps, Thapar, Sen and this thing, and make Kaul as the corps commander, so that he will take over and carry on the operations. Kaul was on leave till 30th September. He was informed personally by Prime Minister, called in the office and told that you take over. First thing he did was reduce the stocking level from 45 days to 15 days. So the efforts which should have worked for about 2 months, their work was reduced to 10 days. Now this is the way he reduced. HB report says they strongly reprove all events till 3rd October. They said they had no regard for terrain, enemy logistic, and basic principles were violated. Now, there was a flurry of activities. Kaul himself went to Hathungla and beyond. He was a sick man. Nobody goes to height of 13,000 feet without without any acclimatization, but he did. Battalions reached on 7th October. They had just 1 blanket and 50 rounds. They were at 18,000 feet. They were sleeping on Hathungla Ridge, 3 of them together in 3 blankets. Now that was the stage. See what we did to the men. So Kaul met the commanders on 7th October, and he says that I've got a mandate, you start operations on 10th. He was told that is not possible. He said I couldn't care less. So he had a meeting and on 9th October, and this is what that Thorat and Thimaya never allowed this, but once they went, they were all let loose. Now is a very important first attack on call on 9th October said that only 2 battalions were available, 2 Rajput and 1 9 Jia, and of course Punjabis. So he said 9 Punjab will attack first Senjong, then Umotsola, and then Thagla. They will be followed by 2 Rajput and 1 9 Jia. 3 battalions, there are 2.5 divisions there. It is ridiculous, laughable stock. So the brigadier Dalvi told him, please don't do, it's not possible. So he said, okay, what I'll do is, you just send 1 company of Punjabis from here and let them sit at the Senjong. And then we'll send 1 9 GR and then further operations. So on 9th October, they went and they sat there. Kaul thought that he has won the day. On the next day, Chinese came with a huge force, attacked 9 Punjab and threw them off. There were half of them casualties. In that operation, Major Chaudhary was commanding, plus 3 MVCs and 2 Veer Chakras. That was the type of operation. They fought very well, but they were thrown back. When Kaul saw this, he was terribly displaced. He decided to return to Delhi. Dalvi said that by the time you go, let's go behind and on the Hatungla Ridge. He said, no, I can't. You please keep staying here. General Kaul could get meetings with the Prime Minister at the drop of a hat. Prime Minister waiting for him. There was a meeting at the Prime Minister's residence on 11th October. He could not convince the withdrawal. That's what General Kaul in his book Untold Stories says. But the Cabinet Secretary Khera says that he did not press on it. When they told him, he would have said, I want to withdraw. Probably they would have stayed. But they accepted. Kaul came back on 13th October and he said, that Sangle post, let's reinforce. Now, 1 more battalion came on 14th October. Now, the logistic position, I would like you to see that there were just 50 rounds. There, if you see this, that there was a total of 10 to 20 minutes of fire on mortar, howitzer and 20 minutes of fire and 50 rounds. You have, what is it called? You have some 4 first lines and at least 8 second lines if you want to go in for an attack. And there are 50 rounds. And they wanted to go for the attack. Anyway, now Kaul fell sick on 17th October. He came back. He was commanding the corps from his bed in Delhi. The first time has happened ever, probably, that he commanded he was still commanding. And now very quickly, the very major operation took place. See, on 19th October, what happened, see the positions. They just 1 company here, Punjabis. There were 3 companies of 1 battalion to Rajput. Then there were 3 companies of 9 Punjab here and grenadiers were sitting here. That's how we were sitting in a dip. Chinese on top, ridge behind, and that's what. This was on 19th of October. Now, the hell broke loose. You can see what happened. This is what happened on 20th of October morning. The Chinese came with a full division. And mind you, people who say that Chinese use the mass attack technique are wrong. Chinese used 1 division against a brigade. They were not wrong. They did not, if you feel the Chinese came in waves and all like in Korea, it was not so. They came with the correct force which should be there as per the army teaching. So they came and you see what happened. You see what happened. They came like this. On this, there were 3 companies of Rajputs. They came like this on Punjabis. 19 GR was going to Sangle to occupy. So the whole battalion was on the move. The grenadiers were here, they were outcast. Only one company was here. What happened was, the two Rajput out of 514, 271 people were killed. 171 were taken prisoners. Just 60 people later. That was what happened with Rajput, because they were. That's what happened with Rajputs, because they took the brunt. And Punjabis, and they also came. This is that Kinse Mane which I talked of. They also came like this. There was a company of 4 grenadiers. There was a chap called GPL, Second Lieutenant GPS Rao. He told his GSU to go back. He stopped the Chinese for 3 hours. So it means that we could stop them if they wanted. He died, he got an MVC. But be that as it may, General Brigadier Dalvi came back. He wanted to put take his brigade squads here. He was caught prisoner. By 10:30 on 20th of October, 7 brigade was wiped out. The entire 19 GR was taken prisoner because they were on the move. Same 19 GR in the Second World War in Monte Cassino had won the Hangman's Hill, which was a very difficult operation. Same 7 brigade was under Fort Diff, and they had both Africa and Italian sector. They had done very well. A brigade was wiped out in exactly 2 hours, and nothing was left of it. Let's now very quickly go to. Then Chinese now came to Tawang, and they came in a very big number. So they came, they came in 3 brigades now. All that was there was just 1 battalion. And this man here at IB range, the Gulab of 1 Sikh, he stopped the entire brigade for 3 hours. This was the first Paramveer Chakra of 62 war. But all the same, Chinese came down and they came right up to here. We all withdrew, and by 24th September, we are behind. On 24th of October, Chinese took a complete they took a rest, or they took a break from 24th October to 16th November or 14th November. Nothing happened. Now, there were a lot of political echoes. USA and UK supported India. America agreed to provide arms. When the list of the arms were given, Brigadier Palik told the Cabinet Secretary, these are all arms meant for plain warfare. These are not for mountain warfare. He said, let them come. On 4th of November, they started coming. All these arms, unopened, were captured by Chinese, and they were given back to us. That's what so much about the American help. There was a Cuban missile crisis on 22nd October. Russia deployed missiles. So, moment Russia deployed missiles, America gave them a threat. Immediately, Russia wanted help of China. So, Russia went against us. So, we lost a big support on 22nd October. Fortunately, Khrushchev took off the weapons back, and on 29th October, Russia again declared support for India. The Prime Minister in the Lok Sabha made this statement. One mistake, we got stuck in an unsuitable area. We didn't tell the army. They were unwilling to return. Travis took. He said that we never told the army to not to come back. Whereas Brigadier Dalvi was telling everybody, please let me go back and let me be on the ridge which is behind, but it was not accepted. Shao Enlai again gave a proposal to Jawaharlal Nehru. He said, you accept our 1959 LOC and we'll return 20 kilometers back. Even then it was possible. But India's reply, obviously, because the opposition now was after the Congress, we said, return to 8 September 59, which Chinese will never agree, they already come inside. Now, three divisions, Indian divisions, have moved to from west. One was sent to, only one of these divisions came to Nifa and is of no use. Nehru took over the Ministry of Defence and Mr. Menon was changed on 31st October. Now, there were a lot of changes in command. They changed the GOC of Fordev, and a new officer called General Pathania is important. He took over from General Niral Prasad. The two brigade commanders were changed. But more importantly, on 24th October, General Harbaksh Singh, whose name you will hear now in 65 operations when they are presented, he was the army commander in 65. He was deputed as the corps commander. He came on 24th October to Sela. He decided what to do. On 29th October, he was told to go back, and General Kaul was reinstated as the corps commander. Now, there were options where do we defend Sela, do we defend Bomdila, or both? Let's see how. It was discussed, but let's see how. And the deployment which I'll just show you. Stocking levels were very poor. Just 7 days of stocks were there, but we'll just see that. Chinese constructed a road from Namkachu to Tawang within from 24th October to 10 November. They completely constructed a road from. That's why they took this rest or gap in between, break in between. They constructed a road so that they could bring their vehicles there. Now, the Chinese forces that came now, much bigger. There were one infantry division, there were two infantry divisions, and the entire support of RT. That's what the. Now, just see this, the war at Sela. This is a very telling war. We lost it, and we lost it very badly. Now, this is Sela, as I told you. Sorry. Now, this is Sela, this is Sangedzong, this is Dirang, and this is Bomdila. Now, how to defend this? Thorat had said that you should not go beyond Bomdila. We had already gone. So, what they decided was to defend both, which is a very disastrous decision. So, in Sela, they put 5 battalions. In Dirang, they put 2 battalions. In Bomdila, they put 2 battalions. Now, that's how. Now, you see, if you see this, there is a route here, which nobody saw. You could go and infiltrate on that route, and you could sit behind all these and make that precisely what this is called belly track, Sir Belly, a sapper. So he had, when MacMahon was doing the line, he had helped him. So this was the belly track on which they went. Now, such 3 brigades sitting there. Now let's see what happened. Now Chinese came, they came, a main force of division came on the main line. 11 division walked on that belly track and they came here. By 15 November they were here. While the force was here, whole thing was bottled up because they were behind them in Dirang. So both these brigades were bottled up. Now in penny packets, the Bomdila force was put to remove this roadblock, which was not possible. On 17th of November, General Pathania told that I want to come back. There was nobody in the corps headquarters to give him a decision. He asked Hoshiar Singh, who was commanding that Sela brigade, how long can you hold? He said, I can hold for 7 days. He said, no, you come back tomorrow. Now there was an utter confusion. I would love to. It is like a war story, but there was a confusion. Somebody withdrew, and they all thought the withdrawal has become. On 17th of November, the entire area was vacated and they started running helter-skelter. They came to, Chinese came to Rupa Chinese came to Bomdila because there was nobody there. Then they came right up to Rupa and then came to Mishamari. All these brigades were washed out, and Chinese were, we were talking of Chinese started on about 14 November. By 20th November, the Chinese were at Mishamari. They were at Mishamari. Chinese declared a unilateral ceasefire on 21st November, and they went back all the way. But in Ladakh, they stayed where they were. Now, just read the comments by the Henderson group. He says the defenses in coming were hampered by consistent imbalance. Situation was not stabilized after the rout of 7th Brigade in Namkachu. A clean break would have been achieved and they would have come down to Bomdila and held it, but it was not done. The period from 26th October to 14th November, when Chinese built a road from Namkachu to Tawang, was not gainfully employed. There were serious lapses on part of commanders and confusion led to about 25,000 men withdrawing without fighting. Bomdila brigade was weakened before the battle was joined because they had already been sent out allwhere, and there was a dilemma whether to fight at Rupa, that is near Tanga. So everywhere, nobody knew what to do. Now I'm going to drop the war in Walong sector because it will be dealt by, it is the same. This is the way they also came into Walong sector, and the Walong was vacated by, where there was just one brigade, so I won't labor on that now. So all defenses in Walong were collapsed by 17 November. Now Chinese suffered heavily from hunger and illness in Walong, and this was precisely the General Thorat was saying, that if you allow them to walk, they will get tired and they will not be able to fight. It happened to them. Ladakh sector I am dropping because Brigadier Jatar is going to So General Thapar returned back from Tezpur on 19th of November. He met the Prime Minister and submitted his resignation. He had failed. China declared unilateral ceasefire midnight 20th, 21st November. And they said, you withdraw 20 kilometers behind the LOC, we'll withdraw. They did. Well, we had already lost that battle. Again, India replied. They said, our stand remains unchanged. Both of us should go back to the position on 8th of September. Chinese have come in, they have already taken Ladakh, but that was the position. China returned all the arms and equipment after cleaning and making lists. The Indian Army casualties were totally 1,383 dead, 1,696 missing, and 3,000 about taken prisoner of war. Now, very quickly, what are the follow-up? First was non-use of Indian Air Force. It is a major blunder. Indian Air Force was operative from Tezpur, from Leh. It was very easy to use the Air Force. Chinese, their entire airfields were behind Lhasa, behind Tibet. They were not even Lhasa. If we would have used the Air Force when this 11D was coming on that belly track, we would have made a mincemeat of them. They would have been everywhere, but especially that. And if that would have failed, Chinese would have failed. But Air Force was not. Air Marshal Engineer was present in the conference on 13th of November, on 30th of July a year, but probably he was not used. He must have mentioned that we must use it. Henderson Brooks committee was appointed as a Menon was relieved. Senior Indian Army officers resigned. but no bureaucrat was harmed. Now, that is what happens. The army fights wars, the decisions come from somewhere, the major decisions are taken from somewhere. But when, I'm very sorry to say, when the balance sheet is drawn, the bureaucrats are not seen. Nobody was harmed, including the foreign secretary, including the cabinet secretary. No, nothing happened to anybody. All decisions have come from there. Now there was a change in the psyche of politicians. For God's sake, the politicians who said that the India is a very safe and very independent and very peace-loving country, and we do not need army, navy, air force. When they are saying now, when they are saying that at least there was a change in their psyche. That well, you need armed forces for a huge country like India. The budget was raised from 312 crores to 816 crores. Of course, that was the thing. Today, the budget of Pune Municipal Corporation is 7,000 crores. 6 new divisions were raised. I must say, end with this. What is the lesson? Strong do what they will, weak suffer what they must. Thucydides had said this, and I hope and I think and I'm convinced that we have taken this lesson now. And what is happening today on the same border is this, that strong do what they want. And that's what we did on 30th of August. Thank you very much. I finished. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Can you hear me at the back? Compliments to Air Marshal Gokhale with the two organizations that he is closely involved with, Center for Advanced Strategic Studies and Maharashtra Education Society, for this excellent series of lectures. General Pitre has already covered a lot of ground, a lot of detail. I don't propose to go into that much detail at all. I'll only talk a little bit about Ladakh because I had the privilege of serving there during the war. Before I start, if Air Marshal allows me to be a little light, everybody I see a little serious. So if you don't mind, I'll make a little light-hearted comment. You see, a couple of days before I came here, one of my ex-junior colleagues, he said to me, "Sir, I believe you're going to speak on 5 February. Now he knows that old people, when they get a mic, they don't like to give it up easily. So he said, "Sir, I hope you're not going to talk too long." I said, "Look, young man, I'm too experienced for that. At such times, I remember the story of the mother and the daughter. Daughter, a young teenager, pretty, growing up, she wanted to attend a party. So she said to the mother, "Ma, what skirt should I wear for this party? A maxi or a mini skirt?" The mother said, better whatever skirt you want to wear, I don't mind. You can wear either of them. Only thing is that the skirt which you wear should be long enough to cover the subject, but short enough to be interesting. So I propose that my talk will be somewhat like that skirt. I hope I succeed. I'll come down to the subject proper. I'll very briefly cover, because actually Air Marshal has given me only 10 minutes, but I requested him that it might go up to 30 minutes. So please bear with me if I talk about 30 minutes. So I'll first come to the map of Jammu and Kashmir. This is just to orientate you to the situation. This is the state of Jammu and Kashmir, the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir at the time of partition. Imagine all this huge state was covering so much land, was part of one state. So here is important areas concerned are, this area which you are seeing here is Jammu and Kashmir. Pak occupied Kashmir is this area. And this northern territory which is shown here actually is part of POK, part of occupied Kashmir. Here is some area shown here is ceded by Pakistan to China in a clandestine manner. Then there is Aksai Chin here. And of course, now this is the general area which I thought I'll make you familiar with. Next slide. I'll come straight to East Ladakh. Mind you, this map is not to scale. It is only representative. It will make the picture clear to you. If you see, Daulat Begoldi is here. I can't see clearly from here. You see Shok here, Leh here, Darbuk, and this is a Galwan area and goes up to Daulat Begoldi. Area east of that is called Aksai Chin. General Pitre has already talked enough about Aksai Chin. But what I want to tell you here is, at the time of before 62 war, this road which he mentioned, Karakoram Highway, was already built by them through Aksai Chin. Now he was very, very keen that India should in any case allow them to accept this road or this Aksai Chin area as theirs. Why? Because the territory of Western Tibet is linked with Xinjiang area on this side, and this is a shortcut to that. Otherwise, they would have to go right round and so on. So that was it. And it was commonly believed at that time, I'm very aware of it, at that time, that China would have agreed to accept the East, McMahon line in the East, provided we give Aksai Chin to them. But nothing happened. As of now, we don't know, the Chinese mind is so inscrutable, you don't know what is in their mind. But now I'll come to this road, which is second road shown here, which I just told you, Shok, Darbuk, Shok, Daulat Begoldi. Now China is very sensitive to our construction of this road. This road has been built only about a year and 2 years ago. When I was in Shok after the war, I was in Shok village, which is on the banks of the river Shok. And it took me, my battalion headquarters, I was a company commander, my battalion headquarters used to be at Darbuk, a distance of about 30 kilometers. It took me 3 to 4 hours of a day to walk, a long time. Today, since the road has been built, it will probably take about 20 minutes to half an hour from Darbuk to Shok. China is very, very sensitive because this way we can make a quick access to Daulat Begoldi, which dominates Karakoram Pass and so on, and the China-Pakistan economic corridor will be dominated by us. So they are very sensitive to that. And it is also commonly believed now that the trouble which took place in Galwan, Eastern Ladakh, last year, when Colonel Babu and his men fought there, that was the sensitivity to this road. That's what the genesis of that problem was. And also Article 370 and all that, I will not go into that. So this is what the situation is on East Ladakh. Now, I will cover the general atmosphere, or rather the situation at that time, which General Pitre has already covered. But Hindi Cheney Bhai was on, and we had very few troops. I won't repeat, he already said, we had, by that time, at 62 July, August, we had 2 battalions there. One was 1/8 Gurkhas and one was 5 Jats. Only 2 battalions covering the entire Ladakh region. Brigade headquarters was at 114 Brigade, was at Leh. Around this time, General Daulat Singh, the Western Army commander, he got wise and he thought, sorry to use unparliamentary language, military language, to hell with Hindi Cheney Bhai, I must send 2 battalions ahead. So without orders from the army headquarters, he sent 2 battalions to Ladakh from J&K. One of them was 13 Kumaon, where I was serving as a company commander. The second one was 1st Jat, which came a little later. By 3rd October, our battalion was already in Leh, and by 20th October, we were already holding posts in Chushul, which I'll come to later. Imagine, no acclimatization. We just moved fast, and some of went and occupied. Well, we had to occupy at that time. Whereas Chinese troops had been there for years and they're fully acclimatized. So that's the difference. I'll come back to the Ladakh area, where, as Brigadier General Pitre mentioned to you, the posts were held. I'll not explain to you all the posts. The important posts were Galwan, Hot Springs, Daulat Begoldi was a company held by a company by then, and then Sirijap, where Dhan Singh Sapa was the company commander. These are the posts all strung along. The nearest distance from Galwan to the next post was 60 to 70 kilometers, and so on. All these places strung up, and Colonel Hasabnis's wife, Mrs. Hasabnis, has written about it, which I have read. What a pathetic story that was. Out of 60 people that were holding that post at that time, 16 were non-combatants enrolled without weapons. There was no road link. Only air support was there. Helicopters used to land, and that's the way they were brought. They were not brought in one go. They were brought in bits and pieces. And so 60 people were brought for a period of time. Now, when Major Hasabnis asked his seniors, in this sort of situation, he was surrounded on all sides by the Chinese. So he asked the seniors, what am I supposed to do in this? How can I fight? The answer was, Hindi Cheney Bhai, China is going to attack you, not going to attack you. That was the attitude. Anyway, when they were attacked, ultimately, about 30 of them died fighting, the Jats, and the remainder were captured prisoners, including Major Hasabnis. This is the story of Galwan, I told you. Why? Because similar things happened everywhere else. There was Dhan Singh Thapa, who had a Paramveer Chakra in the bargain, but he was at Sirijap, and so on. All these places were overrun in this manner. Now come to October 62. By that time, as I already told you, our battalion was already in Chushul. Next slide. I'll come straight to the deployment at Chushul. 114 Military Brigade, which was earlier in Leh, was by this time brought to Chushul. Chushul, we felt, not we so much as the seniors felt, was the place, one place where we could really give a tough fight to the Chinese. After the series of reverses for no fault of theirs, we thought they could put up some sort of semblance of a fight. So what was the deployment at Chushul? Now, before that, I would like to mention to you that the road from Leh to Darbuk and on to Chushul, there was no road except the one which is from Demchok, and then Demchok you had to go along the Indus, right up, and then turn left. It's a very long, circuitous route. So with this kind of a route, it was decided, quite rightly, that Chushul will be maintained by air. There was a reasonably good airfield at Chushul, and AN-12s and Fairchild packets to come and land. Time was short. we knew that the Chinese are going to attack soon. So somehow we had to hold these positions fast. Now, what were the locations or dispositions of troops in Chushul? Here is village Chushul. This is Spangur Gap. This is a gap between the two features of Gurung Hill here and Magar Hill here. This area was held by Gurkhas, two companies. Two of their companies have already been either killed or dead prisoners. But two companies were here. One of them was a Captain P.L. Kher, and the other was an under officer, probably possibly Major Modak, but I'm not sure about it. Now, Captain Kher had a GPO, a second lieutenant called Goswami, who was with him, and this company was deployed here, and some elements of the battalion were also in the Spangur Gap. Come to Magar Hill, where the two companies shown here. One was company B company and one was D company. I was company commander D company, minus a platoon. One of my platoons was in Serijap. But I was nominated as the post commander on the spot by this, on this feature. East of us, southeast, was Rezangla. You must have heard a lot about Rezangla. This was a feature held by a company of 13 Kumaon with Major Saitan Singh as the company commander. The distance between us was something like 6 to 7 kilometers of rugged terrain, including a very high mountain called 18,300, which is now, I believe, called Mukpari. So this was the state of affairs. I can assure you that we couldn't hear a thing of what happened in Rezangla because of this mountain range and the wind direction being such. We could not hear a thing over here when the battle took place. So now I'll explain to you a little bit about the battle, how it took place. Brigade commander, which is headquarters, was somewhere in Chushul. Battalion headquarters of 13 Kumaon was here on this road, which is the road going to Demchok. We had two companies, I already told you here. Rezangla was there, and one more company of 13 Kumaon was along with the battalion headquarters. And the Chinese then attacked. 18 November, they made a simultaneous attack on these two features of Gurung Hill and Rezangla. Before that, I will come to you the importance of the valley. Chushul being the most important part, and also the Chushul airfield being the most important. The brigade commander, in his appreciation, he wondered what are the features of importance. So he thought these two features, Gurung Hill and Magar Hill, they dominate the airfield. So they are to be considered as ground of tactical importance. So, as I told you, resources very limited. So he had no choice. He had to give preference to some features and not to others. So this is in the bargain. Our two features had some semblance of defenses. We had a section of MNGs each and so on. We had artillery support. I recently asked Brigadier Joshi, who was a battery commander as a Major Joshi, he's here in Pune. I asked him as to why he didn't provide artillery support to Rezangla. He said simply that there was no, a battery has two officers, OP officers. One was at Gurung Hill, one was at Magar Hill. So where was the man available? So for a want of a field officer, observation officer, FO, they could not give support to Rezangla. This is what happened. When the attack came on, I'll first talk to the place of Gurung Hill. Now, before that, I'll take 2 minutes to explain to you what happened in our battalion headquarters. A few days before this attack, the battalion commander, Colonel Dhingra, had called his O group. O group is the group to whom orders are issued by the battalion commander. I was one of the company commanders getting the orders. Other company commanders like Saitan Singh and so on were there, all of us. Now, while he was briefing out at the start of it, Major Saitan Singh, he raised his voice. Major Saitan Singh was, I am telling you, the finest gentleman I have come across in my life. Extremely fine person. He never raised his voice anywhere. He did not hurt a flea if you could help it. But here he raised his voice and he said, sir, how do we, words to that effect, not exactly that, but how do you expect us to fight? I got no arty support. I got no machine guns. I got no mines or wire. I got only no overhead protection also, only tents. I myself, for that matter, in Magaril, was in a 40-pounder tent as my overhead protection. So this was, but I told you I was a little better off than Mr. Satan Singh's company. And this was the state of affairs. So he said, how am I supposed to fight? Colonel Dhingra, being a tough and ruthless sort of person, he said, Satan, don't talk to me like that. You know me. So poor Satan Singh kept quiet. He never raised his voice again. And in fact, what Colonel Dhingra was telling Vijay Satan Singh at that time was what General Pitre showed you on the slide. The charge of the Light Brigade. What does the poem say? Theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do or die. Colonel Dhingra was in fact telling Major Satan Singh, you have to go and fight. This is all I can do. And you will go and fight it out. Major Satan Singh, being a very sensitive man, was very deeply offended by this remark. And he said there and then he resolved that he'll go and fight it out to the last round if possible, to the extreme limit. At the end of the meeting, he came and spoke individually to us, Major Satan Singh. He told me, Jata Sahab, I'm sorry I spoiled the atmosphere of the O group. I felt so sad for him. He is fighting for his troops' protection. And here he is, I'm saying he's sorry to me for this. He went to Captain Saklani. He was the adjutant of the battalion. He said, Dhiru, I don't think I'm going to come back here to this place again. He was so deeply hurt by this remark. Now, please don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to criticize the commanding officer. So why he did that? Because he had a job on hand. He had to defend this post at any cost. This is the job that was given to him by the superiors. So what could he do? He could only tell us and others that you have to fight it out. Written orders were also issued, which we did not issue on time, but he said, fight to the last man, last round. And that's how the situation was as far as Satan Singh was concerned. Now I was telling you about the battle in Gorungil. A large number of troops came. Major Brigadier Joshi was watching it as a battery commander, along with Brigadier Raina from here, when the attacks took place and a lot of troops were coming down. Major Captain Kher and his company held on for a while, tried to fight it out. But when they realized that it's difficult to fight, he took the permission of the brigade commander and he pulled out from there in stages. By 19th November, his company was in Chushul. Second Lieutenant Goswami, who was the OP officer, he was very badly injured, but he held on there. He kept on bringing down fire onto the enemy. So much so that Brigadier Raina, along with Major Joshi, this is what Brigadier Joshi tells me. He was standing next to him, and at one time, Brigadier Raina, imagine a brigadier talking to a second lieutenant. He said, where should I bring down the fire? Second Lieutenant Goswami got irritated. He said, sir, don't ask me such questions. Fire wherever you want, because there are so many troops all around, Chinese, that whatever you do will be effective. So go ahead. So this is what happened. This is what Brigadier Joshi tells me. What I'm trying to say is Goswami held on for a long time, but he ultimately somehow managed to crawl across the next day and lost both his legs in due course. And after a few years, he also died. He was awarded a Mahavir Chakra for this action. Well deserved. Captain Kher also was given an award of Veer Chakra. Now I'll come to the Rizangla post, where Major Satan Singh was the post commander. Next slide, please. This is the sketch of Rizangla feature, which was held by a company, C company of 13 Kumaon. A company consists of 3 platoons, 7 platoon here, 8 platoon here, and 9 platoon here with the company headquarters. The feature which you see at the back, this is the feature I told you, Mukpari is now called, 18,300. this is what separated my post of Magaril from Rizangla. This is what it is. When the attack came on the 18th November morning, preceded by heavy bombardment of RT, the attackers came through the re-entrant here, came on to 7th platoon. They were resisted for quite a long time. They came to 8th platoon, also resisted. But ultimately, the Chinese people came at the rear in the area of 9th platoon. Now it so happened that when they came, some of their things, weapons, etc., were carried on yaks, and the yaks had bells which made a sound. So that somehow our people in the company thought that this is our own reinforcements coming from the base. So they were slightly taken aback when actually it was Chinese. And the Chinese came and they really, in a big way, attacked here. Major Satan Singh was the company commander. He was, mind you, going from trench to trench to encourage the people to fight. He was hit by medium machine gun fire. So he was critically ill. And he would have collapsed there, but his company Havaldar Major and the others, 2 Jawans, they said, "Sir, we'll take you down, we'll evacuate you." Major Satan Singh a few steps gone from his headquarters and he said, "Nothing doing, you leave me here." I am saying in English, but he said in Hindi, "मैं यहाँ छोड़ दो, मैं तो यहाँ मरने वाला हूँ, आप यहाँ से भागो और आप अपने आप को बचाओ, मेरे को यहाँ छोड़ दो." And his final words were, "कर्नल साहब को बताओ कि मैंने अपना काम पूरा कर लिया है." This is the spirit that he had. So that's the attack. About 3 hours it took for the attack. By within 3 hours, by the break of dawn, the place was already overrun. But in the process, 114 people out of 126, they died fighting in that place, including the company commander. This, I can tell you, is one of the unique fights for that reason. There are very few occasions when the Indian Army has fought to that bitter end. A previous example was a platoon of Sikhs, 4th Sikh, which fought in Waziristan area in the 19th century, and they died to a man, except one man was able to come back to tell the tale. In this case of Rizangla, out of 126 people, 114 died with the company commander. I think this is also another supreme example of sacrifice. So, but the position was lost. And it's interesting to know, in a way, that about 2 months after the war, of 2.5 months, then the Red Cross gave us permission to go and bring back dead bodies from Rizangla. Brigade commander himself, with the 2IC of the battalion, they went up with troops to help and yaks. Now these bodies they found, and Brigadier Raina was shocked to see all of them with their boots on, all of them in their trenches, in the either crouching or kneeling or standing up, fighting. This is the way they died. There was a nursing assistant called Dharampal who was tying a bandage, and he died with a bandage in hand. And this is what the situation was seen when they went after 3 months to bring back the bodies. The bodies had to be brought tied to the yaks with ropes. But that's how we had to be brought, and then they were cremated in Chushu area. Point to note is that for these 3 months, the bodies were frozen in the ice at the top, height being 17,000 feet. My post also was same, 17,000, so was Rizangla. And Chushul, where the battalion headquarters was 14,000 feet. So with the difference of 3,000 feet, the freezing effect went down and some of the wounds reopened, the blood oozing out. So this was the position, and then the cremation was done. Now I'll come to the show you a few photographs will indicate to you what I was trying to say. Next slide. This is Major Satan Singh. In the background, you see buglers. They're playing last post for the cremation which was taking place over there. Major Satan Singh's body, of course, was taken to Jodhpur. He was not cremated here, but the rest of the people were cremated. Next slide. Again, Major Satan Singh. Here in the background, you see, I don't know how well you can see, but a man lying here. This is Dharampal Dahiya. I told you, anesthetic assistant who this Red Cross band is also on his arm here. So this is where he was. This is showing you the position of the dead body. Next. This is a photograph of one of the heroes of Razangla, Ramchandra, Sipai Ramchandra, then as he was. He was a wireless operator with Major Shaitan Singh. And he is now over here. He's still quite a rugged, strong man. And he comes very often on TV and he's very vocal and very vociferous in voicing his opinions. Well, next. AMX tanks. We had, I don't know if I mentioned to you, but 2 troops of AMX tanks with Captain Diwan as the troop commander. And he's, as a Major Diwan, he stays in Ahmednagar, quite close, and he comes to Pune also often. This is the AMX 2 troops that we had. And they also, I mentioned to you the fire which was brought down by Goswami. Along with that, AMX tanks also fired quite a lot. And Diwan was also awarded a Veer Chakra in the battle. Next. This is a photograph of a truck which got stuck in the mud and snow. And see the number of people required not just to pull out one truck. This is the type of terrain that we had then. Now, of course, roads have been built by the border roads. Excellent roads are there. And situation is not as bad now as it was then. Next. I mentioned to you that memorial was built in Trishul. There's another photograph. Next one also shows the memorial. Which shows the next one. This is the memorial which is built for 13 Kumaon, the heroes of 114 heroes who died martyred there. And the epitaph on the memorial reflects the poem written by Macaulay on Horatius. Horatius was a before 6th century BC hero who fought alone on a bridge, fought it out. He lost his life, but in the process he saved his village because they got reinforcements and they were saved, but he died. So that is what Colonel Dhingra's choice, and he put these words on the epitaph which say, "How can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temples of his gods?" This is what is inscribed there. I know that Trishul battle also was a defeat. We were defeated here by the Chinese, but it was not a rout. I would not call it a rout because we also inflicted very heavy casualties on the Chinese. So we consider it at least not a smudge on our face. This is what all I had to say. I hope I'm not taking too much of your time. But before closing, I would like to say only a general remark. Very often, civilians ask us, veterans, this question: do you think India can take on China now? They are such a strong, powerful nation. How can we take them on? Well, our answer is, didn't Vietnam take on America when they were all powerful? And they defeated them. Vietnam took on China also in the 70s and gave them a bloody nose. Indian army fought in 67 in Nathula and gave a tough fight to the Chinese under the leadership of General Sagat Singh and Brigadier Rai Singh. So we can also do it again. And only one rider is there. We got to have strong political will and a good leadership at the top, which fortunately we have now. And on the part of the public, after all, we are all so many civilians, young people are here, we got to pay the price. If you want to defend, you have to pay the price. It has been shown time and again by people like Major Shaitan Singh and his men. They are all Ahirs from Haryana. They have shown that fight has to be sometimes given in the same manner. Why go so far? Last year, Colonel Babu and his Biharis, they gave a fight, unarmed combat, and they killed more Chinese than they lost themselves. We had 20 casualties. So, all I'm saying is, we can also do it, and we will do it if it comes to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. May I now call upon Dr. Bharat Vankate, sir, for vote of thanks.
Good evening to everyone. It's my indeed pleasure to propose vote of thanks now. On behalf of Maharashtra Education Society and CAS, Center for Advanced Strategic Studies, I'm really thankful to Major General Shashikant Pitre sir, retired, for giving his, the entire spectrum of his experience and what exactly happened during the Sino-India war, along with the PPTs and taking us to the spot and giving us the entire background on which the war was fought. It was like we were witnessing the war taking place. Sir, we are really thankful for you to unfolding the entire story to us. I'm also indebted to Brigadier Raghunath Jathar, retired sir. He also, we can see that for him, age is just number. We can see from his presentation, along with his witty comment, he explained us the Ladakh region where exactly we fought the war and we gave tough to the Chinese. Towards the end, he also, take our feedback that could we won the war or could we give a fight right now to the Chinese. Sir, we are really thankful to you as well. I'm really grateful to Air Marshal Bhushanji Gokhale sir, who is the chairman of Maharashtra Education Society and director of CAS, for giving us these series of wars which India fought, and today we have listened to the two veterans in the second lecture. With his visionary leadership to all of us, we are going to witness a number of lectures ahead as well. I'm also thankful to architect Rajuji Sahasrabudhe, Chairman Governing Council, Maharashtra Education Society, for bringing in all types of supports to bring this a series of lectures to all of us. I am thankful to all the office bearers, including Mahajan sir of CAS, and office bearers, the governing council members, the light member board, and head office staff of Maharashtra Education Society to extend support to bring this function to you all. I'm also thankful to and grateful to the all the veterans who are here from the army background or the forces background. Along with them, the NCC cadets, the would-be soldiers in due course of time, the audience in the crowd, in the hall, and online. I am also thankful to all of them. Of course, the host, BSM, I'm IMCC staff. I'm extending my thanks to them for making arrangement of all types of requirements to run this particular function. Of course, the technical staff from IMCC and of this particular auditorium. Once again, I'm thankful to each one of you. Thank you very much. Barabe, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. We will now rise for the national anthem.
अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा, विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा, तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे, गाहे तव जय गाथा। जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। जय हे जय हे जय हे, जय 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 हे।